Hello, and welcome to Model Aviation Live. I'm your host, Jay Smith, Executive Editor of Model Aviation and Park Pilot magazines. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to share with you today that I put a call out in the magazine for clubs to share information, or members of clubs or club officers to share information with us here at AMA, and especially myself, because next year, 2022, is the year of the club. So our goal is to try to run an article in every issue next year, if at all possible, with tips, tricks, and information, whether it be how to bring in more members of the club, how to work with your local community, how to set up a solar charging station, whatever information that you might have. If you've figured out a way to have more successful events or get more community involvement, we want to share that with our clubs and help them be successful. If you have tips about finding a flying site or maintaining a flying site, anything. And I'm happy to say I put the call out on this show. I also put the call out in my column in Model Aviation. I believe it was the November issue. And I've gotten a lot of responses, but we're definitely looking for even more. So if you have any information you'd like to share on how you can help provide information that other clubs might use, we have an article that's running by Dave Scott about the modern club. It's actually ran a few years ago, and it was very well received. And Dave Scott, who runs the first U.S. flight school, gave a lot of good information and insight on how to improve clubs and how to improve club membership. So we're going to go ahead and rerun that. That's going to go ahead and kick off our focus on clubs. So please reach out to me if you have any thoughts or ideas on anything that we can share to promote clubs and help clubs. And also, I want to talk to you briefly about a review I did in Park Pilot, and it was on a Grobner drone ball. And I had understood that there was definitely a lot of interest around flying a drone inside a cage, which would allow you to fly it into goals or nets or baskets or whatnot. So Manny over at Grobner sent us this drone ball, and we used it for bowling, and we bounced it, and you just did all kinds of fun stuff with it. And it was really a neat experience. It was totally different than anything I'd ever done before. And Dylan and I are pictured there on the cover, and Dylan flew it and Matt flew it, and all of us just really got a kick out of it. I'd say that I think that we even enjoyed it more than maybe we anticipated. I guess we didn't know what to expect, but I mean, how often can you bounce your aircraft off of the ground, be it pavement or grass, or roll it around on the ground? So anyway, it was a really a fun experience. And in the article, I mentioned that, it was fun to fly just with one, but if you had more, if you wanted to fly, say you wanted to fly combat with them and have, basically aerial contact combat with them, that would be fun. Or if you wanted to try to score goals, or there's just be a lot of ways that you could fly them that would be enjoyable with other people. There's a lot of things that could be integrated. So I kind of mentioned that it'd be even more fun if it was a team event. And so since that time, there's been a lot of interest growing in drone soccer. And I'm very excited to share with you, if you're not already aware, that AMA has added another special interest group, which we call a SIG. And our newest group is US Drone Soccer. So to kind of kick that off, we have an article in Model Aviation that'll be coming out in the next issue that you receive. It's not out yet, but we have an article on drone soccer, the US Drone Soccer. And so I invited the VPs of drone soccer on the show. So I'm really excited to welcome them to the show and talk a little bit more about what's involved in drone soccer and how people can take part. So let's go ahead and welcome our VPs. Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
So before we start off, absolutely. So before we start off, I want to give each of you a chance just to tell us a little bit about yourselves, how you got into the hobby, and how you then got into drone soccer.
My name is David Roberts, and I'm a 35-year AMA member. I'm a leader member in education and training, and I'm really excited to be an AMA member. I've been flying everything for years and years. Several years ago, I had an opportunity. I got very involved in drone racing, had an opportunity to take Team USA twice to China to the World Drone Racing Championships, where we worked with world Air Sports Federation, or the FAI, who has the different categories of flight. F9A is drone racing, F9U is drone racing, F9A is drone soccer. That's the latest sport. They approached me and said, what do you think about introducing this to the United States? That was a few years back. A lot of thought was put into that. Team was built to consider this, and we moved forward. Bill Aumer was a key part of putting this together. Major Sanders, he and I worked together on a drone race at Little Rock Air Force Base, the first ever drone race on an Air Force Base. We worked together on that. I think he was the director of that program, and it became apparent that he was somebody we wanted to bring onto the team. Kyle, tell a little bit about yourself, and then Bill, you too.
Hey, so I got my start in aviation, at space camp when I was 11 years old. Ended up going to the Air Force Academy with a degree in aerospace engineering, and flew C-130s in combat, and later came back to the Air Force Academy as an instructor pilot. So I've had the full experience as a military aviator, and was glad to get to meet David and have this opportunity to continue inspiring students into aerospace careers, which is my big passion.
Hey, I'm Bill. I'm out in Buffalo, and I've been flying RC for quite a few years. I got started in the 90s when my grandfather used to take me out to our local AMA field, and I was kind of his pit crew. And in exchange, he taught me how to fly, and so I've been in the hobby for a while. And I eventually ended up leaving my my regular job as an engineer in 2014 and started doing the drone stuff full time for myself. And in that time, I met Bob and Joanne Brown, and they got me involved in the drone racing scene and organizing events. I got to do a few nice events here in Buffalo, travel out to AMA headquarters several times for events there. That's also how I met David. And, with Bob's help, we kind of ended up assembling this team and working on this drone soccer program.
Well, interestingly, in talking about how each of you met, David and I actually met at Joe Nall, and we were introduced by Jerry Smith, a great friend of ours who has written for the magazine and worked with Extreme Flight and done a lot of photography in the past for them. So long before David, you were involved in drone soccer, we met. And of course, Joe Nall is such a great event. So tell me a little bit about how you took this excitement of multi-rotors and turned it into drone soccer for everyone here in the United States.
Wow, I'm going to run with that one, Kyle, because I know you can pick up and add on to this and build. But let me just run to the first. Drone soccer is a team sport. It's usually going to be played 5-on-5 or 3 versus 3 in an enclosed arena, 10 feet wide, 10 feet high, and 20 feet deep are the world standards, 3 meter by 3 meter by 6 meters in Europe. So this is a game where it's a full contact sport. 3-3-minute sets are played, where the 5 pilots will lift off flying line of sight. They'll fly their ball forward with one of those team members who is the striker, the one who's going to get through the opponent's goals on the other end. In fact, you want to run with this? Let's run with the video real quick, and then we'll get to this.
In the Rocky Mountain State Games, and not only has this been a great competition today, Marty, but this is really the inception, the birth, so to speak, of competitive drone soccer, not just in Colorado, but in North America. In some extremely talented drone pilots, and it's going to culminate with the Phantoms and the Prowlers here in the final.
It's absolutely amazing. No one's ever seen anything like this.
Some rules to know. We are playing 3v3, but drone soccer can also be played 4-on-4 or 5-on-5. The players are piloting drones specifically designed to be able to withstand mid-air collisions. So this is a full contact sport. And each team has a striker designated by flags that will be hanging beneath the roll cage of the drone. And then the other two players on each team, their job is simple. Keep the striker from going through the goal and keep the other team from scoring. We will play 3 sets. We will play best of 3.
Phantoms in clear with red ball cages, Prowlers with black and yellow. They couldn't be more different, and they're in the air.
And we are underway here in the final, and immediately the Phantoms score, followed by the Prowlers. They are doing a great job at great piloting there by Breno to sneak his way through to score for the Prowlers.
Alden matches the record for the most goals scored by a striker in any set in the final set. Matching Breno, you couldn't have had a better matchup in the finals. It went the distance. Had the Prowlers won, we would have gone again, but the Phantoms shut them down with some amazing defense. What a team, what a win.
That explains it better than any description where you can see the play. So it's a very visible game.
It's always a challenge to try and describe it out loud, but seeing makes it easier. And children instantly recognize that it's basically Quidditch with drones. And families and parents who just showed up for that first event were immediately able to watch and follow the game. So it's a fun to play, and it's also a great spectator sport.
Well, you mentioned Quidditch, which obviously comes from the Harry Potter books and movies. So I'm guessing just people thinking of that probably brings a lot of interest.
Well, and the fact that it's full contact. I was a combat pilot, and drone racing was too difficult for me to pick up. It was incredibly tough to learn. And I've always played team sports my entire life, growing up playing ice hockey. So for me, that team element is what makes this so compelling. And you bring in students who, if they can hover, they can play the game. They can get in the way of the other team. They don't have to be good to learn and grow. So I think that's what really makes this a special program.
The fact that everybody can participate is also a great part of this program. We have our test market in Colorado that's turned out very, very well. The schools have doubled, tripled in the participation. The fact that everybody in the room, when we get a 12-pack of these, everybody in the room, everybody will be flying. We could go 2-on-1 aircraft or just 1-on-1, but everybody is worrying about putting the aircraft together, programming it correctly, making sure it's programmed, and then the flying aspect of it. Compared to some other education robotics courses, this is very exciting for everybody in the room.
And, you mentioned education. I know education is a big component of that. And we've talked about that. And it also comes out in the article. It mentions about the classroom program and that you're a STEAM partner. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what's involved with that?
Yeah, it's important that this has a lot of application in the schools. I think that aviation in general, and especially model aviation, has had a hard time bringing in new pilots and younger members. It's been kind of a handed down mentorship kind of legacy, but this is something that has real modern application in the classroom. There's a big effort from the aerospace industry to figure out how to reach students earlier and inspire them sooner. Instead of waiting until they get to college, how can we get them excited about engineering and problem solving in middle school? So this is something that answers some of those challenges. It's FAA compliant. It's all indoors. It's in a net, so it's safe. The drones themselves are in a cage, so they're safe to handle with your bare hands as long as you don't stick your fingers inside the cage. So it answers a lot of those challenges that schools have been facing and how they adopt drone education.
So when you're sharing US Drone Soccer in schools, what are the age groups? Is it middle school and up, or what is the general age groups that are taking part in this?
We think 12 and up is really a target age. That's when they have the dexterity and the patience to assemble these, and they have to hand fly. There's no automation, so they are flying line of sight in real time, and that takes a little bit of maturity. But we're actually surprised that what we thought was a high school program is now being used in middle schools and also at the university level, having undergraduates and ROTC cadets take on this program so that they can work directly with the high school students.
That's excellent. And you talked about you tested the program in Colorado, and at this point, is it going U.S. wide?
Well, the testing in Colorado was with several schools. The education piece was put together. The aircraft that we designed and worked in partnership with iFlight for the last over a year was fully tested. And we say what's an age level. We had 11-year-olds taking the aircraft, flying it and up and down, up and down, see how long it could go, and really testing it. That's gone very, very well. Jay, I have to tell you that this is the formal announcement of our nationwide effort to foray into the rest of the United States. With Model Aviation magazine published next month with an article about drone soccer and U.S. drone soccer, we're really excited that this is our foray into the rest of the country and the rest of the world. There's little stories about that too. But you'll see us immediately or right away. We have plans in Ohio. We have very big plans across the state of New York. And we'll continue to work with other folks that we're talking to across the country. So the testing in Colorado was with schools. The educators were fantastic. The kids were really wonderful. And the rest of the world, the community, really wrapped their heads around this. They really got excited. Between Colorado Springs and Denver, Colorado, they were super excited about them. So we expect the communities to embrace this quite a bit as we roll into places like New York City. And the New York City Police Department is talking to us about having drone soccer in every borough, because it's a great way to connect the authorities with the students, with the kids, the police with the local kids, and they're looking for ways to do that. And this is a really wonderful active conversation we're having with New York, and I think Utica also has brought this up. So you're right on the cutting edge of where we're going, and we're really excited to be able to actually share that with you here today.
Well,
we spent, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we're really excited to have you as a SIG and excited to put the article out. And so, yes, thank you so much for coming on and sharing that. What were you gonna say, Mr. Sanders?
I was going to say we've spent a lot of time testing this with educators and building something that is a purpose built for the classroom. It's taken a lot of iterations and a lot of feedback from the students directly into that design process. We feel pretty proud of our durable, and affordable drone that we've been able to custom make for this new sport. But I want Bill to talk about some of the design additions that we've thrown in there to make this an accessible product.
Yeah, this isn't just. Go ahead, Bill.
What David saw in when he was traveling throughout Asia was they were playing with a larger ball, a 40-centimeter soccer ball, and we saw the opportunity here in schools, so we went the route of the smaller 20-centimeter ball, and there wasn't a product out there, so we took some time. COVID was bad for some people, but it gave us an opportunity to kind of stay in the lab and work on prototyping these 20-centimeter balls.
Here's a prototype of the earlier prototype, and then we can see what we matured into.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
Yep. So we had the opportunities to really slow down. There was no rush to get this into the hands of the drone pilots, and so we were able to solved a lot of the problems that we were seeing with the other balls. We're keeping our weight right around that 250 gram mark, which is nice for the FAA compliance. We've designed a cage with these openings top and bottom, and an airfoil design in the cage itself, in the injection molding, and that improved the airflow big time. What we found when we shrunk the ball down was that the cage itself takes up so much of the space that it was very constricting to the airflow through the ball. And so we lightened this up and had to go through some revisions of what material we're using find the right combination of stiffness and durability for these, so we can throw these around the room and bounce them off the floor and everything, and they hold up to the abuse that the kids are doing. Everything on here is, easy to change. It's a full contact sport, so we do expect, you could break some stuff on here. So everything's designed with the same screw, so it's one screwdriver, and the cage parts are all zip tied together. So hey, if you did tangle up and tear one, cut, new cage, zip, you're back in the next match. And so yeah, iFlight is our manufacturing partner on these. They help bring them to market, and I kind of do a lot of the work on the prototype here in my shop. I got a lot of CNC machines and stuff downstairs so that we can iterate quickly, and design and test right in house. So it's nice. It's been a good journey.
So Bill, I'm curious, talking about testing and a few different iterations. I mean, how long did it take from starting to say, okay, we're going to make a drone soccer ball at this size, to getting what you're holding in your hand? I mean, about how long was the process to vet different ideas and try different ideas until you got what worked best?
We have about a year in development on the ball, and then after that, comes another 6 months in getting production set up and finding QC issues and ironing things out like that. So we were kind of blessed to have a little bit of time on our side to get these things right, without the extra pressure of having that hard deadline to come to market. So it gave us a solid product.
And you can't find a more fun product to test, right?
Right, and we were fortunate to have test schools that were able to come in and be involved in the prototype testing early on. So these students were really putting it through their paces, and we were watching how they assembled them, what challenges they found, and writing the educational material alongside the teachers. So we were getting that all baked into what would it take for a teacher who's never done drones before to open this box and be able to be successful. Things like eliminating soldering. For some of the younger students, that's a very difficult and dangerous skill. It takes weeks or months to teach them that. So we worked with the manufacturer to have plugged motors. We've come up with some other noise reduction using some newer propellers that bring the noise down. And our whole vision was something that could be used in any classroom. It's a small enough arena that they could fly it in the gym or in the hallway or even in the classroom. And we think that this is something that is really going to help spread the hobby and lead to future gameplay. We know that these high school students will be our professional players in a couple of years.
That's one of the things I was thinking about is, unfortunately, we find with AMA flying sites, unfortunately, construction and housing and different things sometimes encroach on our flying sites. And what once was out, a ways out from the city is now really part of the city. Like, for example, where I'm from in Florida, there's a field called the Largo Flying Club. And when they created the field, there was no houses. Now it's surrounded by houses. And sometimes they get complaints from the gas and glow motors that are flown on some of the aircraft, or occasionally they might fly a turbine jet. So they've been on the verge of going all electric. So I really like the idea, and flying indoors is great. But to your point, Major Sanders, is that if you're going to fly indoors, usually you need a gymnasium or a pretty good size area. So the great news about this is you can take a classroom, as you said, or a small area. Someone could do it in their garage. You don't need a big space to do it. So I think it would open it up to, as you said, in New York City. I mean, you can pretty much do this anywhere.
And we're seeing in Japan and South Korea, they're investing in very large drone arenas for the larger size. That's a big investment. That's a lot of real estate, for an arena that size. And so we think that this is something that will be effective at the middle high school level, and then we'll move into the larger drone size at maybe the collegiate level, where they will custom design and manufacture them in-house to compete with.
Our goal is to have this. Actually, just add on to that. Our goal is to have this as an accessible sport and available to any middle or high school organization. from boys and girls clubs to the local high schools. And by going with a smaller format initially, and writing the education piece alongside it, and then having our league play software that allows pilot to register and begin their career, to grow from being competitive locally to a state competition. We've aligned with all of the AMA districts. So we would have district champions, regional champions, national. And this is the only educational robotics competition that's also internationally sanctioned as a team sport through the FAI. So we plan to take Team USA to world competition as soon as possible. We'll be hosting some competitions that are more international next year, but you can see that our path was to definitely try to get every student being able to have an opportunity to play drone soccer with this more affordable approach for educators, students, the nonprofits that we work with, administration. We think it's a really great approach, and the education piece that's written alongside this is how to put the aircraft together properly, how to make sure it's programmed correctly, how to assume the responsibility, getting them through the trust test, the FAA trust test in partnership with you guys. So we see the 40 centimeters a really important platform, a big, wonderful size, but we're going to grow into it.
So at the current size, if I understood you correctly, there is no registration requirement with the FAA because it falls under the weight.
Right.
Yeah, when we're working mostly with school systems, there's a lot of barriers there and a lot of concern among district administrators about, do teachers need to be licensed to be able to do this? Do they need to have insurance? Can they fly with the airspace? So we've really tried to take all of those concerns out of it. This is something any teacher can do with no experience. And same with the students. We know that if we can get them in the door with this program as that initial pipeline, that they will mature into more advanced design challenges, you know, more industry applications. And that's really our goal.
Yeah.
Well, Matt and I put together the Grotner drone ball because I took it into the studio and we wanted to get pictures of it. And it was super easy. And I'm, you know, from what I can see, the soccer ball that you're using also is easy. So generally speaking, if a student gets one, what's involved in putting it together? I know you touched on it a little bit, Bill, but what's involved in putting it together? And what would be a typical time frame to open the box and have one flight ready?
Yeah, Kyle, how long have you seen the students take? I mean, they get going really quick.
Yeah, we, you know, walking through with a whole group of kids, maybe 2 hours to get it assembled. But, you know, I had a particularly motivated student that opened the box, sat down, and 45 minutes later had it ready to fly. So it depends. But, you know, helping out those new students is a big part of it. And I think that our whole approach is, rather than just putting this out on Amazon, is to build that community around the sport and build that mentorship into how we grow as an organization.
And putting the aircraft together, I want to add on just a little bit, putting the aircraft together and piecing it together, that's the beginning of them getting truly interested. When they fly, we all know that joy of flight is real. We try to get it every day. When the aircraft inevitably crashes, and because they're not going to fly perfect on their first flights, we know that. When the propeller breaks, just something as simple as that. And they're going to have that disappointment we have. It's like, oh no, I'll never fly again. It's broken forever. And then they go to fix it. We then have an engineer. We have somebody who's inspired because they fix it, they fly, and they're on their way. So that's kind of not the trick, but that's what we're using. That's what we anticipate they're going to get excited about, the joy of flying, just like we all have. And so we want them to be able to build the kit so that then they can know how to put it back together when it needs to be fixed. But not many things break, what we come to find out. It's mainly just a propeller blown out. But still, the hook is real, being able to fix that aircraft. And then they get inspired to modify it, to adjust the flight characteristics. Everything about this is open source, so that everything can be modified.
So what, generally speaking, what size LiPo batteries are you using, and what kind of flight times do people expect?
We're using 4-cell 650 for competition. You know, it also fly on a 550 as well if you want a little bit lighter setup. One thing we found is that, you know, it's kind of like some of the other racing disciplines. You want to get right up against the weight limit because being heavy gives you an advantage to push other people around. and you can adjust that weight in the size of your battery. So competitions at 650 is preferred for that additional weight. And the matches are 3 minutes, and so you have plenty of time on a battery. So you're not stressing the batteries out by competing.
Perfect. We got a comment from Lee Ray. We were talking about how small an area you can fly in, but he's thinking big. He's asking about supersizing the layout, place pilots in a protective cage or netting, and enlarge the court and drones. Well, you did talk about getting bigger drones, but I guess the sky's the limit. Really, you could make any kind of course you want.
Yep, that's right. And one of the things that we have in development is our scoring system that the balls operate. We designed ourselves, and so if you use your imagination, we could use that system to say place obstacles around a large warehouse that would become part of a new game that hasn't been invented yet. So
we're now seeing increased industry interest in drones that can fly in enclosed spaces. There was a video out, I think, a week or two ago of a company that flew a drone into the Chernobyl reactor for the first time to actually see what it looks like in there. That's incredibly challenging environment, and they did it with a drone ball. So this is an introductory program, but you can see that there are going to be all sorts of applications that we haven't thought of. The students will surprise us with different versions of the game or obstacle courses they could do. So we're really open to where this sport evolves in the future.
We thought it was a great idea to stick with our friends, the World Air Sports Federation, in the initial set of rules, the F9A rules, in order to ensure that path to World Cup play, and to just play along with introducing this. But we all agree that there's a whole bunch of different variations on how a game can be played with a set of drone soccer balls. Kyle, I know you have one, maybe not with you, but there's FPV. We have one. We have standard parts here. These are motors you can buy from FPV if you wanted to. It's a flight controller, just like all the flight controllers we work with, where you can program them using beta flight. The propellers are something everybody can buy. So when I say it's open source, there's so much that can be changed and shifted and modified on the 20 centimeter, and as we go into the 40 centimeter platform as well. I think what you won't see us doing is going to a 35 centimeter or a 48 centimeter. We want to stick with the 20 and 40 centimeters because that's the FAI standards, and that way anybody that works with the U.S. drone soccer ball or drone sports ball, they're able to play anywhere in the world and ultimately compete together in drone soccer. And then any other game that we are able to come up with as time goes on. So let's keep those ideas flying. Eventually, we'll need to have a repository of the neat ideas to see what we can grow into another game. But you can see we thought it was a good idea to go down the middle of the path, middle of the road, just to get things started.
Yeah, I think Lee might have mentioned putting the pilots inside the arena, which would make it drone dodgeball.
Yeah. Well, and you also, I'm assuming either you offer different, the ball part that protects the drone, you offer different colors, or maybe you can, people can color them or paint them themselves, I'm assuming too, especially when you're playing the game, so you know who's on each team. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, we've currently got additional colors being made, and the students in schools have taken it upon themselves to use some of the plastic paints that are available and have matched them to their school colors and have kind of designated the different players with slight variations on what they've done with the cage. So they got ahead of us and started coloring them already.
And that's the pride of ownership. We've structured the program to mirror aviation practices, and each drone has its logbook, and teaching them how the industry works. And at least when I flew in the Air Force, every plane had a name and a story, and you could open the maintenance log. And one of my favorite C-130s I flew on was called the Deer Slayer. Apparently, it took a deer out one time. But you could look back in the logs and see, all the way back to the 60s, what that plane had done. And so we encourage the students to have that flight patch they create for their team, to name each drone, and the custom paint job has been a really exciting evolution. And, you know, from our initial ideas of how we would, you know, color the cage for orientation completely changed with the gameplay. You know, we had some ideas, but being able to test with these schools really showed us some of the challenges and some of the ways to, you know, mark your drone so that in a game when you get hit and spun around, you can still reorient yourself very quickly and get back in the game. So it's a whole different environment when you're, you know, full contact, and it just adds a completely new element.
That was some of the feedback we got from the students. They were the ones that configured, instead of having this in front and back, they changed it around so the only one was in the back. That was part of the feedback. Another thing that we didn't mention is on these aircraft, there's 24 LEDs that are fully programmable. They come programmed to beyond that any color, they can be any color. They can tell the status of the aircraft. I like in fact, the programming is there's front headlights, then there's rear tail lights, and that's the health of the aircraft. And so then you can have the colors on the side with large scanners, whatever. So it'll, again, allows wonderful customization students really like.
Well, I think, as we stated, I mean, it's really neat then to make it your own. You know, just like if you build a model airplane, to me it's like a blank canvas, right? You know, if you want to build a P6E Hawk, like you were talking to me before, David, there's definitely different color schemes and what you can go with. So I think it's great that you offer, you know, the ability to customize them. And you know, I was wondering about FPV. You touched on that if people want to add FPV to it and have that experience, that's great, because that's also really fun. So a lot of what we talked about, though, is which is great, is targeting it to schools and students. But what about if somebody like me, who's long graduated school, and I want to get involved? So, and you know, our members watching this and say, "This is great, I want to get started." How would we get started in it?
So we've you know, been carefully testing and really rolling this out with schools. But next month we're formally announcing the launch of this program nationally. And we are going to be having these drones available through a Kickstarter. So that'll be the only way for the public to buy them directly through this period, through about February. And then after that, you would have to buy it through a certified league location that are popping up around the country. So you go to your nearby arena, you go to that organization in your city that's running the league. And in that way, it's a lot like signing up for Little League or Pop Warner football. You go down to the community park, you know, sign your kids up, sign your family up, and you can purchase your equipment through that league.
And I'm assuming it's kind of like, I mean, obviously it comes with everything that you need. So for competition, you know, I guess you would refer to it, a lot of times we refer to it as a spec class. So everybody's on an even playing field. So other than changing your LED lights or coloring the plastic ball, I mean, is there anything else that can be different from soccer ball to soccer ball, or would they all be the same outside of that?
Yeah, I mean, the specs, you know, it's a specific cage size. There's requirements that these holes not get too large. You have your upper weight limit, and there are some battery limits, so I can't throw a 6L in here. But outside of those constraints, you have the freedom to explore different, you know, ideas and try to find a competitive edge inside of that, you know, that envelope. You know, like we said, right now we're seeing you want to push the weight up to the limit. And, you know, maybe there's some other things, you know, moving the center of gravity around might have something to do. You know, maybe defense is one center of gravity, and offense might be a different center of gravity. So we'll see how it develops. But you are free to move around a little bit as long as you can contain it within, you know, those reasonable specs.
I'm sure before too long we'll have some scratch builds, you know, competing.
Right.
Different from an RC airplane, there is a flight controller in here. And the flight controller drives the motors so that it flies. It's a bucket of bolts otherwise, like a helicopter. There's a bucket of bolts. So it needs a flight controller to keep the aircraft flying. And any race drone or any freestyle quad, that's what they're going to be using. We have very carefully programmed that flight controller. When we're talking about what can be modified and changed, we programmed it down. Just a real simple example would be the throttle cap. We don't allow it to go to 100%. We're only putting it to about 25%, with the idea of allowing that 11, 12-year-old to most likely have success. There's other things we program that won't tilt over too much. The error response is programmed in very carefully. We spend a lot of time on that. So when we talk about what can be modified, it's really under the hood. Within that flight controller, being able to go into beta flight and change every single flight characteristics to make the aircraft go 0 to 80 miles an hour if you really wanted it to. We don't recommend it. You're not going to do that in the arena. So there's a point where you do really want to throttle it back and have the control and really understand your environment, that small little 10 by 10 by 20 environment. It can be really, really fast, but then you're at the other end of the arena too quickly. So that can be changed. How much it will tilt over can be changed or modified. And I would, if I were offense, I'd make it more aggressive. I'd make it tilt over and really drive in there, but you got to be able to put on the brakes too. So there's a wild variety of things to be changed within beta flight with that flight controller.
And, a lot of students, they break a lot of drones early on because a little overeager, attacking. And these goals are solid objects. So they're slamming into a wall with this drone. It's pretty tough, but it's not indestructible. But they learn that it's more about finesse, and it's more about, kind of juking and dodging your opponents. And once they begin to key into the competition and they're trying to outsmart these other players, it's this whole other element. And, it's really interesting to watch. At the Rocky Mountain State Games, we had a player on the gold medal team play through every single game, every single set, and not break a single part on his drone. He was just, playing the game and staying alive, which is really important.
I've flown a lot of RC airplanes through the years and crashed a lot. We all have, we're RC pilots, we've done that. But it was really remarkable at the end of the Rocky Mountain State Games to have all the students competing, and every aircraft was ready to fly at the end of the day. It just needed a little tweak here or there, but good job, Bill. Great design. But we're excited about that it can take that, the aircraft can take that kind of punishment. So the kids can keep playing. So we're all kids. We can all keep playing.
Right. Well, obviously you've designed it, for success for people that have never flown before. And that's huge, because we know, if people aren't successful, sometimes, that can turn them off to continuing in the hobby. I'm curious, is there currently any type of simulator that is available for this, or is there any plans for a simulator for people who want to spend more time practicing?
The flight characteristics of collisions aren't built into most simulators, so it would need some additional development to get the physics right, I think. What were you saying, David?
That is on our roadmap. It's something we're pursuing. We have a lot of other fish to fry right now, or aircraft to get in the sky, but we do plan to have that. We think it could be a big part of better understanding how to play the game. When we look at the games that are being played and how the play happens in Korea, where they've been doing this for 3 or 4 years, it's crazy. It's really fun. If there's five pilots that are all flying on one team, 3 of them are mainly defenders. One's a pathfinder, one's a striker. The 3 defenders, we see them flying in unison, in formation, circling around, defending the goal. So being able to have a simulator will allow that kind of practice to occur. Having a simulator that can allow multiple players to come in, the collision detection, so you see the road we're planning on going down. We have talked to a couple of different folks about it, but not quite yet. Soon, one of these days. We're not going to say soon. I used to work with software years ago, and so we're not going to call it. We don't have vaporware on the horizon, but someday.
As someone who's played some online games, I'm envisioning an online portal where people can get in and play against people all across the world. I mean, like when Real Flight, for example, integrated that, and you could pick a flying site and fly with people from anywhere in the U.S. or outside the U.S., even anywhere in the world that has an internet connection. I could see that being a big draw at some point. But, as we said, it's very forgiving. I mean, my experience with the drone ball is very forgiving with the cage, and you can bounce it off the ground, you can bounce it off the walls. And, when Matt flew it and I flew it and Dylan flew it, we were just really impressed. That one that we flew, it was really impressed that you could do things that you would never do. Really, you'd never really want to do with your drone or your model airplane or your helicopter. I mean, you don't want to bounce it off a wall or try to roll it along the ground. I mean, if you roll along the ground with an airplane, you better be doing touch and go, or otherwise you're going to be stopping. So there's a lot of durability, but I mean, it's the team aspect. I mean, that's why everybody enjoys playing multiplayer online games, I think, is getting together with other people and sharing that passion. That's what AMA is. We bring people together and share that passion, no matter what your special interest is. And I can see the excitement here, and I can see the excitement that all of you have for it, and the excitement that you are sharing in the schools. So I'd be curious just to hear a little bit more about, what are you hearing from the teachers? I mean, you touched on it, but what are you hearing from the teachers and educators and the kids? I mean, I know I've taught some people how to fly, and that joy of when someone takes the transmitter and flies whatever type of aircraft, I mean, that's all it takes to hook them. Let them get one flight in and you can hook them. So just, if you don't mind, all of you or any of you share about a little bit about these experiences, or going from just being able to hover to actually being able to play a team sport. I mean, what's that been like?
Kyle, do you mind if I start and then you finish up? You know where I'm. You know
Go
what
for
I'm
it.
going to say. So there we are, Rocky Mountain State Games. These kids are over there. The students are flying. They're okay. You go right. You go left. Okay, I'm gonna. And they're working hard. This teacher nudges me. She said, "I've never seen that before." What? These kids have never been on a team before. They've never strategized. They've never worked to put something together that now they're on a team that they're successful today because of what they're doing here, and she was so excited. That's a little bit of the feedback. Now, that teacher was a CTE, a career and technical educator, career and technical education teacher of the year last year in Colorado with this program and probably everything else that she does. But that feedback was immense to us. She had tears in her eyes, brought tears to our eyes a little bit, just going, wow, that's really cool. But what it was doing for the students was truly remarkable. How that was helping really maybe underserved kids or kids that have just not ever been on a team before. That's just one segment of the folks who were involved. So thanks for letting me tell that story, Kyle. I so a little thunder, but other stuff you can share. What else?
Yeah, I play video games, and flying in the Air Force, we flew a ton of simulators, and it's come so far that e-gaming and esports is now this worldwide phenomenon that school districts are actually approving video games as a varsity sport in some states, which I never thought would happen, but here we are, in this new world. And, the reality is that a lot of kids right now, those video games online are the only social interaction that they have outside of school. And this is an opportunity to get them out from behind a screen and playing a real game with real consequences. They have to sit and fix it. It brings them together, and, not every student plays a traditional sport, but this is something that I think a lot of them can really find that same leadership and communication and growth that they would get. And then the benefit is most families don't know the careers that exist at the airport, a couple miles away, or the high paying, high demand, avionics technicians, line operators out on the flight line. There's a whole hundreds of jobs that they never pursued because they didn't know. And so this is an opportunity to get them exposed to aviation and aerospace at such a young age that maybe they could think like, yeah, maybe I could go do that. I can fix this drone. Maybe I could fix that airplane. So that's, I think the big value is we pull them in with the sport. Families can watch it. They get excited about it, but it opens up all new doors for kids.
Yeah, you touched on it, Major Sanders. I mean, it's always, I tell people there used to be an Air Force commercial that showed a child throwing like a paper airplane, and then, they threw like a little balsa airplane, and then a glider, and then a drone, and it said at the end, "We've been waiting for you." We that's what we want. The Air Force was looking for people that were aviation minded, that started out with model aircraft, and the Nats used to happen on Navy bases, and there's just a tie-in. And Hoot Gibson, who has been our ambassador in the past. I mean, he's a 5-time space shuttle astronaut, commanded 4 of the space shuttle missions. He was the gentleman who shook hands with the Russian cosmonaut in space, and our president said that was the end of the Cold War. I mean, he says because of aeromodeling got him into that. And we have so many pilots and people that work in aviation design. I think you touched on it. It's so important that getting people started early and finding out that they're interested. We just heard a story of a young woman who came out to a flying site. I believe she's 11, and they taught her how to fly, and they gave her a free AMA membership, and they're helping the family get her a model airplane. And now she wants a career in aviation, and now she's asking her mom to take her to their local airport and just sit there so she can watch the planes take off and land. And so you're bringing that into the classrooms and bringing that to the hands of the kids and the students. And I think that's wonderful. And I'm also curious, I'm sure things have come out of this even so far that you haven't expected. So I'd be curious if any of you have something to share that, unexpectedly, a great thing that's come out of this that maybe you didn't anticipate or think about when you started this process.
I want to share another anecdote. So we put on this tournament, and we've been really focused on engaging with the teachers. And we hadn't really directly engaged with the parents yet. And so we invited them out to this tournament. We had a few hundred people watching these students compete, and we weren't ready for the reaction from the parents. They were like, kill them. They were so into this game. The drone soccer moms just yelling their heads off the entire time. So it was exciting to see. And I think that's where we can, really change some minds, because a lot of times the parents are having to decide what to invest, in their kids' time, and people understand sports and understand the value of it. And I think if we can make that same argument that this is sports with the education, with the future career path, I think that's something that'll help parents support their students in the hobby.
Kyle, will you share? What I was surprised about was our outreach in Nigeria. Will you share about how that program came together? I was totally shocked that interest came and that it's happening.
So we've, been pretty intentionally quiet about this testing phase, and we're excited to begin telling the world about it, this month. And choosing some sites to test the program has been important to us. And so we have partners in Canada who are rolling this out with indigenous tribes there, but also a U.S. consulate program doing outreach in Lagos, Nigeria. So these are students in the area. We're working with an NGO called the Global Air Drone Academy. And these students from 8 different schools, half boys, half girls on each team, will be engaging in the first African drone soccer tournament this January. So I'll be traveling to Lagos to work with those students. And, again, when we talk about, we've tried to build something for students who have never been able to engage with aerospace or drones before. This is a true test, taking it to a community that doesn't have access to these resources and seeing how the students respond to it. And I tell everybody that we work with that, the students will surprise us. They will learn it so fast. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
And another thing, some leadership we're getting out of our friends at District 1 in Lagos, Nigeria, is there's going to be 8 schools that will be doing this. It's backed by the U.S. Embassy. Each school is required, or their approach, their configuration is 5 girls, 5 boys. That's made us stop and think, well, yeah, this is gender neutral. This is disabilities neutral in so many ways. And we have conversations ongoing as a group and in and outside on how we approach that. But that's a wonderful example that those folks are showing us at the get-go, and it'll be really interesting to see what we learn beyond that. So, Kyle, we're excited for this trip to Nigeria and to see.
Yeah, and I think. Oh yeah. Well, there's the Paralympic community. We're seeing veterans groups interested in this for recovering veterans, which I'm a recovering veteran. So, there's a lot of issues that we care a lot about, and I think the accessibility of this can open up RC to whole new communities that haven't really had an opportunity to try it before.
So, Bill, when you were trying to design the ball and all the testing that you did anything unexpected come out of that for you?
I think some of the unexpected stuff is that you can overbuild it a little bit. You can't make it too stiff and too tough, because that starts presenting like unintended consequences. When you're talking full contact, something has to break. You know, so what's it going to be? Are we going to break the arena? Are we going to break the goals? You know, should the balls break? You know, where's the, you know, those fusible links? You know, and so we had to carefully, you know, go back and say, all right, you know, let's maybe not make these quite so stiff, so tough. Let's take a little material out here. You know, let's, you know, let the zip ties let go. You know, because hey, it's easy to just throw another zip tie. So we had to go kind of rethink some of that stuff. You know, couldn't build it, you know, bomb proof. You know, we had to, you know, make some adjustments there.
Yeah, it's everyone has a good plan until you get punched in the face, right? And it took a lot of testing to figure out, you know, how these drones could handle it.
Another surprise I had was the cooperation we've received from our partners in China with iFlight. The weekly conversations we've had all through COVID, every Monday evening or Tuesday evening, we're talking to them on their Monday morning or their Tuesday morning. So that sets into action stuff that we were talking about. But the cooperation we've been able to receive with them, where we say, okay, this happened. And at first we were totally in a soldering mode with everything. And there was like, nope, we need to go plug and play. And Bill would make calls on, here's the best way to go at it. And they'd say, okay, well, let's work on that. And then next week, boom, there were answers that were coming at us, and we were able to continue to progress. It's taken many different iterations. I think in my workshop, I have 8 different versions of this ball. Just give, you know, here's a 3D printed version that was early on, but then from there, we really started to iterate through. But it's been wonderful to have that kind of cooperation. In today's world where everything's just so separated, here we were able to not have barriers. The 3 of us are across the United States. We were able to just carry on and communicate with each other. So that's been a wonderful, not a surprise, it was a goal that we set out to have, to be able to do that. But it's been, I guess it is not a surprise, but it's been a wonderful thing that turned out that way.
Well, obviously, I think it's clear the excitement and where this can lead to. So for people who are watching this either live or after the fact, I mean, obviously your website is a great place to get information, but just take me through. So if someone watches this and they want to get involved, maybe they're an educator, maybe they're a student or anybody, maybe they're an AMA member. What's the next step? I mean, obviously going to your website, but what other things can they do? Where can they watch some of the competition and how can they get involved?
Well, we've had an exciting article come out in Forbes, and there's some other pieces written about it that would be great content. We've tried to begin publishing this information to our website, which is an ongoing process. But December 15th is when our Kickstarter campaign is going to launch that people can directly get involved in. You know, a big part of our mission is to raise funds and channel that into community outreach programs. You know, a big part of how we have grown this program is so that those nonprofits can, you know, earn some revenue to continue growing their outreach and supporting the students. So that's a big part of our Kickstarter campaign, is funding those programs, creating funding opportunities for schools. So, you know, those of us that have a passion or have been fortunate enough to have a career in aviation, we appreciate, you know, your support going into December and helping to kind of share the program, and if you can support students to get into drone soccer.
Well, that's excellent timing because your article will be in the January issue that comes out in December, and excited to hear that it'll be on Kickstarter. We worked previously with Burt Rutan when he launched a Kickstarter, so that'll be exciting to see. We're almost out of time, but I want to make sure, I mean, there's so much to talk about and it's so exciting, but I want to give each of you an opportunity if there's anything else you want to share that we haven't had a chance to touch on.
If this is a program that you're excited about, you want to bring to your community, do go to dronesoccer.us and fill out the form and say, hey, this is something that I want to host an arena. I want to be an educator bringing this in. I'm a student. I want to learn to fly. Go to dronesoccer.us and check it out. We'd love to hear from you. We're now we're expanding across the United States, and we're incredibly proud to be partners with the Academy of Model Aeronautics. And thank you for the opportunity, Jay, to share and finally tell everybody about Drone Soccer, and we look forward to seeing you at a local arena.
And the key to this effort is finding that champion in every community in that city that wants to bring the arena in. So it could be a university, a youth development organization, a city council. If you have the ability to, raise a small amount of funds to put a professional arena in, that's all it takes to begin enrolling schools. And we will train staff, we will train educators to be able to implement that program. But if you have the ability to bring this into your town, please get in touch. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, and if you're an AMA member and you're out in the field or out in the community, I got involved in this because my grandfather brought me along out to the field, and it set me on my course. I didn't know much about airplanes before that, but he was in the Air Force, stationed in Guam, passionate about aircraft, and he had bought me some kits and everything. So make sure you're a member. Engage the youth around you, be welcoming at your field to the kids and stuff like that. Show them what it's all about, because it can really set their future career into motion.
Nice.
Well, I can tell you, I think that we need to play drone soccer at AMA. I'd like to play some of my coworkers. I think we need to field a team for sure.
We'll set up an arena there as soon as we can. We have 2 different sites or different classes of arenas. Either one of them, we need to get it there. I understand that the museum has asked us about getting one of these balls there and a little bit of story about what's happening. We're excited about that. People can at least come and see the ball eventually, but we do need to have an arena. I think we'll have an intramural AMA competition.
I'm in. That would be amazing. Well, I want to thank you all for taking the time today. It's really exciting that you are sharing the news on the show today, and we've got the article coming up and the Kickstarter, and we definitely want to promote the Kickstarter so that we can get drone balls and kids able to play as much as possible. So be sure to check out the article in the January issue. That'll be out in December 15th for digital and the end of December for print. Also, keep in mind, those that are print subscribers, we are running into some delays with the postal service because of the holidays. So if your magazine comes a little later, it's not because we didn't get your magazine to the press in time. It's just delays in shipping and mailing. And I'm going to definitely be checking out your website to learn more as we get closer to the Kickstarter. Everyone should check that out. I'm assuming you also have a Facebook page and other social media that people can follow.
That's right. It's all on dronesoccer.us, and please get engaged. Reach out to us. We're a small team, but we're adding new team members, and we're looking forward to our first academic leagues in Colorado, New York State, and Ohio this spring. So if you're in those states, come out to a high school competition and see what it's all about.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I was saying thank you to you. We really appreciate it.
Yes, well, thank you so much for writing the article and joining us today. Thank you for partnering with AMA. We're excited to have you as a SIG, and obviously excited to promote all the education opportunities. And so we will follow all your updates, and maybe next year we can do this again and get more people involved as it gets out there across the U.S. and share with people. And I'm definitely interested in any kind of league that starts around here. And Ohio is only one state away, so I might even have to go and visit when you do something at one of the schools in Ohio. I'd love to come and take a look at that. But thanks for everything that you're doing to promote this, and we'll definitely look forward to the article. I'm sure once that comes out, you'll get a lot of questions and interest as well. Also want to mention before we wrap up that our next show is December 17th, Friday, December 17th. So I hope everyone will join us then. Until next month, talk to you soon.